Hi, welcome back. You are listening right now to episode 3 of a 3-part series. So if you're jumping in and hearing this, go back to 2 podcasts from now and listen to episode 1 and episode 2 in this series. We've got a very special treat. I'm going to share with you a podcast series that Joe Polish and I did on the I Love Marketing podcast, talking about a concept that we surfaced first in episode 12 of the I Love Marketing podcast, which, now we have 360 episodes of that podcast. So that goes back a while. And the reason it's so relevant right now is because Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy have just released their new book called Who, Not How. And this concept of the self-milking cow was the genesis of that thinking. And I thought it'd be a really great time to get that out to kind of surface the below the behind the scenes kind of things that lead to how things evolve and become big concepts. So I think you will enjoy this 3-part series. And what I'd recommend is that you listen to all of these, but more importantly, go get a copy of Who, Not How. It's out everywhere right now, and it truly is a revolutionary book that will make a big difference in your life. You've heard me talk a lot about this idea of being the cow and not succumbing to the temptation to be the self-milking cow trying to do it all. Well, this is the framework of the philosophy that gets you there. So nice perspective building for you over the next few weeks. And this is a good time of year to be really contemplating going into 2021 right around the corner with a real who, not how plan to multiply your efforts in the coming years. Okay, so there we go. Hey, everybody, it's Dean Jackson.
And Joe Polish.
There you go.
Yeah, so what are we talking about today?
You want to talk about how I feel first?
I don't really care how you feel, but I mean, unless it's going to somehow enhance my life or the lives of our I Love Marketing listeners. Because, you don't have to feel good in order to...
Well, you'll actually enjoy this. So the one word for me today is happy.
Happy.
Yeah. So, have you seen Pharrell Williams has this new video that he just launched for that song Happy? Have you heard that song from the Despicable Me soundtrack?
It doesn't ring a bell. Why don't you sing it for everyone? Go ahead.
It's light and happy, and he's got
let's hear
24. Okay, hang on. I'll just play it.
No. I want you to sing it. I mean, let's take this.
You've heard that song, right? That song.
That's exciting.
So he's got a 24-hour video for this song at 24hoursofhappy.com.
Yeah.
And they shot this video, just continuous loop, 24 hours from midnight to midnight, of Pharrell and all these different people just walking and dancing through the streets of LA to that song. One song on a loop for 24 hours. And it's just the most fascinating thing. You can't listen to it for more than 4.5 minutes without being happy.
So
that's my prescription. I think this right here, I think doctors should be prescribing this instead of saying, take these antidepressants. Is here, go to 24hoursofhappy.com and you need about 12 minutes.
Well, that's, why don't we make the I Love Marketing episodes only 4.5 minutes long? And we come up with something that we could say. Just think about how many episodes we could knock out, like in an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire year's worth.
Wow,
instead
in 1
of us
hour.
devoting this much time to, recording all these episodes as a public service of building our, the relationship and rapport that we have with all of our friends and clients and
That's great.
eavesdroppers and bystanders. And
we could do 15 episodes an hour.
That would be good. Okay, so what's that have to do with, other than, going to 24 hours of happy.com or whatever, what's the message?
Well, I think that'll set the tone. I think that sets the tone. But, here, the thing is that I have been on this quest and grand experiment of embracing my bovinity. Really, embracing my bovinity. Allowing myself to be a cow. Cows are bovines. So I made up bovinity as the word to embrace your bovinity. So it's really interesting because as we've been talking about this concept, it's really interesting the conversations that it's starting, because people are asking, about the difference between being a cow and being a farmer, and how do I become, where do I start with really embracing my cow, and how do I start with, what if I'm a farmer? And, it's fascinating to me to see how all of this is kind of unfolding, because when I realized that really the things that are the most valuable things in my work life are things that are creating. They're things that only I can do, the adaptive challenges, as Wyatt Woodsmall calls them, doing the things that only we can do, and allowing all the technical challenges, things that anybody else can do, to do those, to be supported. So it's the biggest shift for me has been now working with a project manager, and that is, I can already see, going to be the turbo booster for me. That's the thing of just almost like having some adult supervision in a way, and somebody who's good at organizing and moving things along. And it really fits so well with Dan Sullivan's concepts in the 80% approach of focusing on making it up as that's the real work of being a cow or a creative. He talks about the 3 phases of make it up, make it real, and make it recur. And, what he does, he works with project managers. He's got 4 different project managers who they're really the only people that he speaks to. He'll come up with an idea for a project, and he'll do an impact filter, and then he will meet with his project manager and completely convey the what of what he wants, what his vision for the product or project, and what it will, what it'll look like, what the things that have to be true when it's complete, and all the elements of the impact filter. And in that conversation, then the project manager's role is to then go and do an impact filter of their own and create the strategy circles to make those things happen. And it's really kind of a really different thing. I tend to, on my team, to have a lot of process managers, meaning people who they want to work a system, not so much create a system or create checklists or create something out of nothing, which is really where there were sort of bottlenecks in my kind of throughput process, where I was having to make it up, but also make it real, and then have something completed to hand off to team members. So this has been a big step. I think it's going to be a really powerful thing. I've often wondered, you and I haven't really talked about our processes for getting things done. So I'd really be curious about how your team kind of plays out, and who plays the project manager role, and how you actually.
Well,
process
I would be
things.
happy to give you my input on that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's interesting what you just said, just thinking about it. And this maybe will put you on the spot, and you don't have to do it if you don't want. Nothing embarrassing here, just a recommendation. Because, when you started, me and you both attend Strategic Coach. We're both friends with Dan. I certainly spend more time with Dan than you do because, he likes me more than he likes you. But that being said, we both go to Strategic Coach and we, both do things with Dan outside of Strategic Coach. I do my 10X Talk podcast with Dan. He's in my 25K group. We spend a lot of time, personally and professionally hanging out because we're very close friends. And so I spend a lot of time with Dan and Babs. I'll stay over their home, either the one in Chicago or, Toronto several times a year. But we both get, different, obviously, interpretations and perspectives on the individual work that we do and how we think about things. And it's always, of course, fun to talk about Dan because he's, so much a thinker, a systems guy, a bigger future strategist, a focuser, a clarifier. I mean, there's a lot of elements that come out of working with a guy like Dan. And when you're talking about, the biggest shift with working with a project manager, I've heard that conversation, discussed that conversation, have thought about it many times. And the thing I was going to suggest is, you talked about the 80% approach, and I've done, an episode on 10X Talk with Dan talking about the 80% approach. And, we've had numerous, conversations about making it up, making it real, talking about how to use the impact filter, things like that. I think it'd be really cool if you took one of those 30-minute episodes that we do on 10X Talk and you actually give your interpretation of it in the same way that, me and you have listened to, we've interviewed people and then we talk about it. That would be I'd love to hear your perspective without me literally on the call.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to do that. I listen to all the 10X Talk episodes.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be really cool to put it up as I Love Marketing episode so that Dan can go deeper with it with your sort of recommendations and your interpretation, because I always think that adds so much to it because you have a really good mind for how to hear something and then break it down and make it more tangible and more real and more useful for people. So if you'd be willing to do that as a follow-up episode on one or two of them, I think that would be incredibly useful and insightful, because me personally, I would just love to hear what you'd have to say about it. So that's my suggestion. You can choose to do that or not. The second thing I would say is, who is your project manager? Did you just recently hire someone as a result of this? Because this sounds like a new shift for you.
Yeah, so I've been working with a project manager, and this whole idea, what it's really brought to me is keeping everything, helping me keep everything very organized. And I'll be interested to hear how you do this, but I'll explain how we've been doing it. I've been working with a guy, Stuart, who comes from kind of a corporate background in project management. So he's had a lot of experience like that and done a lot of sort of consulting in that kind of a role. And he is what Dan Sullivan talks about in the Kolbe Index as I think they're called facilitators is what it is, or mediators or facilitators, whatever it is. They're in the middle of...
Well, program advisors are...
What's that?
You talking about in Strategic Coach?
In Strategic Coach, I'm talking about the Kolbe Index for what a project manager is. It's somebody who is right across the middle in all four of the elements. They're
you think I would know this after many years of doing this in my assistant units being certified in Kolbe, but I don't know. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
And Kathy being right down the street from you.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Good at everything.
So what typically entrepreneurs are long, quick starts, which is ideas and getting things going, and a project manager, the ideal score, or I don't know what we call it, score for their Colby is right across the middle in all things. Like, so Stuart is like, I think like a 5, 4, 6, 4 or something like that, which is right in the middle, neither insistent or resistant to any of the 4 elements of fact finder, follow through, quick start, or implementer. So he's able to just go along with it. He's not resistant to it, and he's not insistent on one being stronger than the other. So he's able to take things and really just kind of see what needs to be done, give it some structure, help things stay on track and be organized. And for me, it's really been just great to have a sounding board and somebody that I can say, this is what I want to do. And this is the big picture of what I really want. And he can then help me organize the path to get there and interface with whoever needs to take that project from there, and who can keep everything moving, and more importantly, kind of add that element of adult supervision, where now it kind of keeps me on track, that I'm able to do and know what the most important things that I should be working on are. So it's really been a great thing. We've been using something called Trello.com, which is kind of a project management sort of online app. Are you familiar with it? Have you heard about Trello?
Yes. I mean, I use Basecamp, and we use a couple of other things. I've never used Trello.
I've got Basecamp too, but it's always been, Basecamp seems kind of overwhelming in a way. And it may be great for managing teams and stuff. But what I really when I really kind of evaluated what my needs are, and we're kind of going through this, looking at it as setting up something that is COW compliant, almost like a COW compliant project management system. So we've broken Trello into 3 different areas, where we've got the pastures, which are my boards where I just can capture all of my ideas. I can just put everything in there. Those are only visible by me, so that I can organize everything in categories. So if I've got an I Love Marketing board, where I can go in and I can list all the things, all the potential projects, or all the things that we could do with I Love Marketing, or I could do it with my Breakthrough Blueprint live events. I've got a board for that with all the projects, all the things that could capture all the things that I want to do. It's like a playground in a way, the pastures. Now, the freedom of knowing that everything, all the ideas that I have are stored in one area. They're captured, kind of like what getting things done would say, getting them to in. That would be kind of the biggest thing. That alone has been just a huge inspiration for me, because if I look at the way that I have in the past kind of organized things, I've always kept them kind of organized in my journals, and I've kept to-do lists and project plans, and done 50-minute focus finders in my journal, where I'll have paper lists of things, and it works, but it's very sort of, it's not that easy to move around and to, organize. And there's, when you go back to that, or you want to add to it or create something, now you're kind of starting over. So there's a little bit of, inefficiency in it. So having these pastures where I can go in and put all of the projects that I want to do. So the basic categories, I've got organization. So my first, the thing based on the things that we do. So we've got helping entrepreneurs make more money. So underneath that are all the things that go into that. So we've got I Love Marketing and the Breakthrough Blueprints and the Breakthrough Blueprint Mastermind and Go-Go clients and all of the things that we do to help entrepreneurs. And then I've got the helping realtors make more money, where we've got all of the things that I do underneath there with getting listings and money-making websites and finding buyers and the world's most interesting postcard. All of those things all have their own area that I can go in and I can just brain dump, put all of the things that I want, all the ideas that I have for any one of those categories are now captured in a place where I can add to them, I can review them, I can kind of look at it, and I've got the iPhone app too now, so I can add to the board if I have an idea on the fly. I can add it to the appropriate board, and I know that it's captured. So that's been a big thing. Now, that's just one part of it. And if I look at then getting those ideas, those things out into the world, the next step is that they need to become sort of projects that are in process now. So, Stuart, we came up with this idea of the milking shed, which is where we go to put the projects that are the things that I'm working on, that only I can do. So this episode, recording an episode of I Love Marketing, is something that only I can do and only you can do. This is we're the cows in this particular context here. But once it goes from the milking shed, now it goes into the processing plant. So we're setting it up just like a real farm operation. We've got ideas move from the pastures to the milking shed.
We should get Temple Grandin on. You ever watch that movie?
Yes,
yeah, we should get her on as an I Love Marketing guest. That would be awesome. And if anyone has never seen that movie, Temple Grandin with Claire Danes, just watch it. We won't go into too much details, but it's a brilliant movie based on a true story and a real person with autism. It's fantastic. But yeah, you reminded me of that just talking about this as it relates to obviously business.
Right, exactly. So it's pretty fascinating, though, this whole process of setting things up with a view to making them real in the world. And not only making them real, but making them recur seamlessly and flawlessly. And so now this kind of project manager role is really about being the transition from the pasture to the milking shed, and then being the sole transition from the milking shed to the processing plant. Because that's where you really get into trouble and get tipped as a cow, is when you start moving into the processing plant. You start wandering around the aisles in the processing plant and messing with the machinery and all that, and the things.
Well, that's a really great analogy to kind of where I get into trouble and where tons of frustration and messes and anxiety are caused. Right. And it was funny when you mentioned let's talk about, because I'm very good at front stage. I don't like backstage, and that's strategic coach terminology.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Both of them.
To the degree that you have some area of your backstage that needs to be handled, that needs to be made real, to put it in the make it real part, and you're no good at it, or it's not getting done or whatever, then you're going to have a lot of frustrations. And it's one of the areas where it will just kill creativity and performance. If it's kind of like the Frank Sinatra doesn't move pianos, but if you are if you're Frank Sinatra and you are having to move pianos and sell tickets and do everything, which initially in a business, you're going to have to wear many different, but in most cases you do wear those hats because, for one, you don't have any sales maybe in the beginning, or not enough to even afford people, or you just don't have your shit together. So it's a stage that we all have to go through, the getting our shit together stage. And getting our shit together not only is getting clear on what to sell, how to sell it, which is where marketing comes in, but also on who is going to assist you in how resourceful and discerning and diligent are you going to be to set those sorts of things up to have a quote unquote, functioning business from, a small operation to many thousands of people. So this is a really good distinction to make. Because different people, there will be people that were listening to this that really are project managers in terms of the way they behave and the way they think. And there's other people that are like us that aren't like that at all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they may be thinking, well, of course, this is the way. And I think that there are people who just organizing things is certainly comes natural to them. It's like that's their preference, is to keep everything in order and to, think that way. The way you and I think about marketing, they think about organization and management.
Right. Well, and see,
it's fascinating is realizing that not everybody's a cow.
I mean, my assistant Eunice would be a perfect example. I mean, Eunice has been with me at this point, 18 years, and left to her own devices, she would rather, she's innovative and creative, certainly. I mean, she reads a lot of books. I mean, she's adopted a lot of entrepreneurial, she's very entrepreneurial. She lives very much and operates in the results economy, not the time and effort. I mean, she gets, I do pay her a salary, but I also pay her bonuses, and she also has, single-handedly helped facilitate millions of dollars worth of, sales for my company over the years. And she's even been people have come in and tried to offer her way more money, than I pay her in terms of financial money, but she never takes it because she also, is not just there for money, although I do pay her very well and she's incentivized. It's just that, there's like this whole little setup that we have that just works for both of us. And, her thing though, she's much more comfortable as a process manager, dealing, not a project manager. And I want you to make the distinction because these are things I first heard from Dan, but I like the way that you explain it. Okay. And I'm a guy who's always coming up with new stuff. So right now I'm needing to find another assistant who, for one, Eunice has adopted a tremendous amount of stuff that is very high level things that she needs to spend her time on. And if I throw everything at her, which I certainly throw a lot at her, it's not an easy position, in terms of, you need to be bright, you need to be sharp in order to, hang around me and keep, this machine moving forward and doing all the things that we do and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, like, if I gave her a choice of, hey, just focus on 25K, trips to Necker Island, ethical services, different things that we have, she would be completely fine with that. If I said, hey, she would not get really excited about every 3 days we've got a new thing that I'm going to throw at you. That is very disruptive to her. But to me, I love that shit. Exactly. It's like, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm bored with something like almost instantaneously, and I'm off to the next thing. So we always have this, I can get anything done that I want as long as I'm not the one that finishes doing it, because I'm not very excited about finishing, whereas Eunice is.
Well, one of the best things that I've ever seen you talk about was when we did our Breakthrough Blueprint event together in January in your office, and you drew up on the whiteboard the racetrack. And you had this idea of that what you're really good at is taking the baton from the start to the 100-yard line and then dropping it right there, and then going back and getting another one and getting it to the 100-yard line. And you end up with this big pile of batons at the 100-yard line with nobody there to take them the rest of the way. And that's kind of frustrating. And that's really what that's really what I'm finding quite enjoyable about Trello is that you and I both have no shortage of ideas or inspiration for ideas and enthusiasm for ideas. And so what I find is that not to capture that enthusiasm and to at least get everything that you know right now about it into a Trello board and have that to come back and pick up where you left off at least, I'm not sure that you have that kind of a capture system or maybe you've been just keeping it secret from me. But I sense that you don't have that sort of.
Well, here, let me make a confession about this and do it in a way that I think will be instructional to everyone, so that because I mean, frankly, we're making it up and making it real as we go along. That's what entrepreneurs do. And so, first off, for our listeners, you want to hopefully. Now,
136 episodes.
You're doing. I mean, the founders of Google are doing this. Everyone is doing this. Even companies that seem to be so completely automated and systemized. I mean, now there are certain areas that just are solid. I mean, I think McDonald's doesn't need to make it up and make it real on how to make a Big Mac. Not that I recommend anyone ever eat that crap. But in terms of,
but I imagine somebody had to have the idea for the McRib, and somebody had to go through the process. A project manager had to go through the process of researching how are we going to compress these snouts and hooves and ears into something that looks like a rib and get the grill lines on it and make it palatable to taste. That's a project manager.
Right. Make it actually taste good and addictive to children, and put it in a little Happy Meal box, and, all that sort of stuff.
That's a project manager.
No, but the point is, there's all kinds of things that people are constantly doing. I mean, I've always loved, saying, it was really a conversation I had with Dan Sullivan when I first started Strategic Coach back in 1997, where, no matter how well structured and organized you are, most people get up every day and bumble their way through life. I mean, they just do. You can do it with a time management system. You can do it with a schedule. You can do it with employees. You can do it with a mission statement, which I don't like mission statements too much. You can do it with a company vision, a culture. There's all kinds of ways that you tap dance, even if you know the moves, but you're still, if you're growing, you're continually making up new stuff and making it real. I mean, that's just simply how you grow a business. And there are very few businesses or opportunities that are going to be exactly the same. You go back to McDonald's. I mean, with all of the different forms of communication and social media, Gary Vaynerchuk is going to be at my office in a couple of days, and we're going to do a video interview. He's got a new book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. And so I Love Marketing is kind of like our jab, jab, jab. Mm-hmm. Where we're just putting things out there to people for free. And then the right hook is if we ever actually ask them to buy something from us. It's that sort of thing. So we're making it up and making it real as we go along. So going to my example, we have JR, who we've done a couple of interviews with for I Love Marketing, who works with me and is brilliant. And, we're in the midst of the holidays, and there's a bunch of different things that I had ideas for. And so you talk about my operating system. JR is one of them. I mean, I just dump ideas with him and we strategize. We have stuff on Basecamp, but am I using it as thoroughly as a dumping ground, as a bucket to capture stuff in the same way you've just described Trello? No. And so now I have ideas just from listening to you talk about it on how I can improve it. But a perfect example today, there's 3 letters that JR wrote last week that are great letters. Now, there's a couple of changes that I'd probably want to make to these letters, but these would be a combination of a holiday letter, one with a book attached to it, giving a book to some of our best clients, different things that we can set the stage to offer to sell. I mean, there were just ideas that I had, and I sent the idea over via email. I think one of them was even in an audio that I recorded, and then he just takes it upon himself because he takes initiative. He's very he anticipates what it is that I am talking about, what it is I think I need, and he just does it. So he does it, and then he sends it back to me. Now, I've got all kinds of performances scheduled this week. We're doing a radio interview with Jay Abraham later today. I've got a crowdfunding event I'm on tomorrow. I'm doing a teleseminar at Peter Diamandis tomorrow. I'm doing the interview with Gary Vaynerchuk. I've got other people in town. I've got about 7 performances that I need to do in the next 3.5 days, if you have to take the time it is right now that I'm talking to you. So I don't have a lot of logistical time to make sure this letter or any of these letters get done and get put into a calendar and get mailed. So, and I don't have a project manager that is looking at those things and saying, okay, now that this stuff's been created, let's make sure we can then make it real. Because JR made it real by writing the letter. Now, the other part of making it real is actually getting the letter finalized, edited, planned, printed. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts.
Well, that's the whole
describing this. It made me realize, that's exactly. So I sent a letter to 3 of my team members, my CEO Eunice, and another person who's kind of an assistant for me, and saying, who right now is capable of being the project manager on this. I mean, that's the terminology that I actually used, that could actually print these letters out, determine when we're going to mail them, that sort of thing, because I just needed some movement on it. But see, that is a huge area where execution does not happen for entrepreneurs, is things like that. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I still have those sort of things. And so later today, when I'm done with all of my calls and recordings and performances and creation and stuff, there's a person in my 25K group, a new member, who actually referred someone locally as a project manager. Her name's Tammy. I've not interviewed her yet. I've not done anything other than ask Eunice to get a Colby to her, so that by the time I talk with her, I know what her Colby is. So I am in the pursuit of finding another person for this, because it's one of my biggest areas of opportunity. And by not having that place, it's also one of my biggest areas of frustration. In the scheme of things, this is a very exciting thing, because it's like, oh, wow, you can take this stuff and you actually can make it real. So I'm not saying this to be like, oh, shit, poor me, and I'm so overwhelmed. But it is overwhelming when you don't have it handled. And so for our listeners, you can learn everything in the world about, marketing and strategy and stuff. But if you yourself don't have the ability to like make it real, or have even a system for, getting it down, you're going to have trouble. And one more thing I'll say, like Ned Hollowell, the top ADD, ADHD psychiatrist, he's a real dear friend of both of ours. And of course he likes me more than you too. But, that being said, Ned, I was talking with him one day, about systems. And he made this comment, which I never forgot. It was so funny. He goes, Joe, for ADD people, like a lot of them avoid systems like the plague. He's like, you hate systems. Systems cramp your style. And I was like, that's so funny. But what he meant by it was, I just resist them like no one's business, because it's just, however, not having them and not having a person or a way to set it up could really lead you completely astray. And so I understand the critical nature of this stuff for eliminating complexity and messes and overwhelm. Yeah. And at the same time, it's one of these things where, I have to really bring myself back to reality and say, all these great ideas, all these great strategies, without a road to drive the vehicle on, it doesn't matter if you build an amazing hot rod. I mean, you still got to have people that will, do the pit stops and will help, build the damn thing. And when you start going down the track, you got to keep yourself on track. So, I mean, I think this whole conversation is really, going back to the Cal compliant, is knowing, where you need to like your whole thing about the milking shed and the processing shed and Dean's boards. I mean, all of those it's a great way of looking at it. Hopefully it'll.
We were just saying, I mean, we laugh and laugh as we're going down this, but the deeper we go down this path of stretching that analogy to its limits kind of thing, it's uncanny how it fits. I mean, how it really does fit is like the only thing that I aspire to be doing now is going from the pastures to the milking shed, and that's it. And having, the milkmaster in there kind of, knowing what my role needs to be in something so that I can do my part of it, and then knowing what has to go into getting everything outlined for the processing plant, so they've got the instructions of what to do, and that it continually recurs, and we've got examples of it, because the I Love Marketing podcast, we look at that that's the perfect example of, in isolation, a project that is completely throughput engineered. You and I come from our separate pastures. We come on into the milking shed and we talk for an hour, And that's our involvement in this. Now, we've already set up the process that will take this audio that you and I have created here, and that will get it edited and processed and put the theme music on and go through the 30-something steps that it takes to get it from here to there. To on the website and on iTunes without you and I having to wander into the processing plant. It was a project to set it up so that the system is in place, and now having the team in place to take that process and make it recur 136 weeks in a row here,
Right. Yeah, and there's a tremendous amount of snafus along the way. I mean, it's just part of, as you're figuring, Gary Halbert used to have this line, which, is vulgar, but it's very, in my experience in working with thousands of entrepreneurs over 20 years, it's more accurate 99.99% of the time than anything else. And he said one day, he was going through a direct mail campaign years ago. I mean, this is before the internet. And, we were talking about this campaign, and one of the people that worked for me at the time was, talking about the logistical difficulty of this, and what about this and what about that. And Gary said, look, everything's a clusterfuck until it's as smooth as silk. And just put it into action. And I was like, that's such a great way of looking at anything that you start. And, people that are perfectionists that, it's just got to be right. I mean, good luck. I mean, those are the people that are in many cases brilliant, and they're talented and they're smart and they see the vision, but they just can't stomach the fact that this is going to be messy. And things are going to make mistakes, and you're going to deal with all kinds of bullshit. And your tolerance level of dealing with human mistakes and human incompetences, including your own, and figuring stuff out, and it might not work right, it might not fit right. It's like, would anything? I mean, if you sit and look around, if you're in a home or a building, like right now, or a vehicle or a car. I mean, considering you're not, hiking in the middle of nature, listening to, on an iPhone or an iPod or something, listening to this. If you just look around at everything, from, if you're in an office building, you're looking at desks and computers and chairs and carpeting and lights and tacks on the wall and drywall and, everything. And if you're in a kitchen, you're looking at knives and glasses and maybe, scissors or, maybe, microwaves or George Foreman grills or Vitamix blenders, whatever. I mean, and you just think about the initial time that any of these things started, like someone had to invent a George Foreman grill or a Vitamix or a Macintosh computer. And if you sit and think about all of these things that are real, first had to be made up. And a lot of times people really like, oh my God, I've got so much shit to do, as you're surrounded with all of these tools that people that had to make these had so much shit to do. I mean, you could be surrounded in a small room by stuff that has cost billions of dollars to develop and perfect, that is there to make your life easier and even capable of doing things that even 5 years ago you could not do. And people will still come up with like some reason to get annoyed with a few fuck ups that are going to happen as they start their project, as they start their business, as they try some initiative. And so part of it is, for one, get that sort of nonsense thinking that you cannot do it out of the way and adopt the, like the Book of Survival quote from Anthony Greenback: to get through an impossible situation, you don't need the, mind of an Einstein, the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules. You just simply need to know what to do. So it's one thing about figuring out what to do. And now the element here, what you have brought to the table with this Cal compliant analogy, is just how to take all of these thoughts and, the concept of a project manager. Okay. So if you have all of these things, how do you actually, because if you break down project manager, what does that actually mean? Because everyone that's listening has some sort of project, something they want to create. And then there's a process for doing that. So going back to my thing in my long rant here, I'd love to have you make the distinction between a process manager and a project manager, because learning that sometimes totally clarifies it, because it's even helping me just think this through and talk about it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I look at it that even in the way that my understanding of it, a project manager is really would be more from the transition between making it real or making it up and making it real, right? Like 100% cow compliance is making it up. We have the idea. We know exactly what we want to have happen. Then the making it real part is thinking through, what would have to happen to make this happen once, sort of thing. And how, all the decisions that go into when you start something new. Like, let's just even use the podcast as an example, or let's use the 90-minute book process. So last week's episode was all about the 90-minute book. That's a perfect example. Everybody's got the ideas that they want to get out into the world as an entrepreneur. They know what the idea is, and they love the idea of creating a book, but there's a lot of steps involved in that whole process, right? And so I started out with setting up, realizing that I would be more comfortable talking about my idea. I can draw an outline and talk about something for an hour in 90 minutes. Like just 30 minutes to outline what I'm going to talk about, and then an hour to talk about it. And that turns into ultimately a 50 or 60 page book. And it happens so much faster than if I was to write a 50 or 60 page book. I mean, that takes hours and hours and hours to do something like that. And most people, most entrepreneurs, ADD entrepreneurs especially, would have a hard time sitting down and being still for that long. That's my whole problem, Same with you.
Yes,
now,
still.
So it's still. So the first time that I went through this process was almost exactly a year ago, after meeting with Dan and Babs in London, just kind of serendipitously. He was talking about this. He had just done his book breakthrough process and introduced me to this whole create space situation where you can print the books in low quantities. And so I had just hired a guy who his role was to help me package up all of my ideas and all my programs and all stuff like that. So I told him what I wanted to do, and he went and found all out about how all that works and what got us set up as a publisher, and got the format that we need and the templates, and set up the process actually for getting a book from idea to out in the world. So when I look at it now, that I have a capability called a 90-minute book, I have the ability to write a book on anything with no more than 90 minutes. So last week's episode was an example from beginning to end that turned an idea into a 90-minute book. I had the idea, I don't know whether I even told you this, Joe. I had this idea of, there was a Seinfeld episode where Kramer got a publishing deal for doing a coffee table book about coffee tables. And it kind of felt like doing a 90-minute book about the process of creating a 90-minute book seemed like exactly that kind of irony, So I had Susan Austin, who is in Phoenix there, actually, Joe. She was Thomas Leonard's right hand. She was the one who was his sort of project manager and packager, and packaged up all the intellectual property and programs that Thomas would create for Coachville, training coaches and stuff. So I did an interview with her for me explaining the whole process of the 90-minute book, and we spent 30 minutes on the phone going over the outline. Then we spent 60 minutes recording the actual content. And then from there, the whole process takes over. Now I had Glenn makes the cover to the book. We got the domain name, 90minutebook.com. We got the cover of the book designed. We got it transcribed. We got it laid out. I wrote a little intro page for it and set up the whole thing, got it over to CreateSpace. And now, we have a real tangible book called the 90-Minute Book, which from beginning to end only took 90 minutes of my time. So that setting up that process started with conceiving of the project of being able to write a book and get it to my strategic coach class a year ago. Because I told Dan when we were in London that I would, have a book for our next workshop, which was kind of 2 weeks away. So I had to move quickly like that. And now that as a process for entrepreneurs is something that anybody now has as a capability. If they've got an idea and they can afford 90 minutes to, put that idea into the world and then let the process take the rest of that stuff and get it out into real packaged, tangible form and in their hand, that makes something very, very easy. So that is at the stage now where it is in the hands of a process manager, where now that we've figured out all the adaptive challenges of creating a book in 90 minutes, which would be, how are we going to outline it? Who's going to do the interview? Who's going to get it transcribed? Where are we going to, who's going to design the cover? Who's going to lay out the book? Where are we going to get them printed? What size are we going to do? How are we going to get them, shipped to the person? All of that stuff, figuring it out for the first time is a project. Outlining the steps, creating the checklists, creating the system is now a process that can be managed by a process manager. So doing something the first time is really what a project manager is about. And doing something on an ongoing basis, once you've already figured out how to do it, is a process manager. And often they're different people. And so if I look at my own team, I have people on my team who are mostly process managers. And you probably run into this too, Joe, where you have things where you have people, if you tell them what to do and you lay it all out and they know exactly what they need to do, they are 100% reliable. Nothing is going to get in their way of making sure that whatever needs to be done gets done. But they often, where they get frustrated is when they don't know what you want them to do, what the step in the process is, and they're not as adept at making it up like we are. Like they're not going to figure out a solution or figure out what needs to be done intuitively or what would, add something to it. They're coming to you to ask you what you want to be done next,
And that is a difficult thing to do for both parties, from their standpoint, they're like just trying to do the best they know how to do. I don't think anyone wakes up and figures out how to do the worst they can do. I mean, certainly lazy people or people that aren't really engaged, which is a whole nother, episode we can do an hour on. If they're not engaged, that's a whole nother issue. But from the entrepreneur standpoint, there's the real frustration of, why aren't people resourceful? Why can't they think straight? And, a lot of it's just simply different operating systems. And you're expecting a Mac to perform like a PC or a PC is expecting to perform like a Mac and they don't. And so that's why it requires a real understanding, as much as you can, about how things and people and different people actually work and function and who is reliable for you and what you have done to set it up. Because if you have not set up a reliable system then you begin to despise or hate or criticize or feel that you can't count on anybody. And if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. And, and that's a tough position that every entrepreneur has been in or is currently in right now, is just that belief that you can't find good people or this and that. But it's not that it's even just good people. It's this good people for certain things, because as Dan Sullivan says, there's no such thing as bad work. There's just bad work for certain people, including yourself. So if you find where you're frustrated, it's just because you've probably put yourself into an area or a situation where you're not able to perform, in the way that you can perform. Because,
yeah. Or if you find where somebody else on your team is frustrated, or you're frustrated with somebody else on your team's performance, if you really evaluate it, probably the most common thing, or the thing that you might want to ask is this person a project manager, and I'm asking them to manage a process, which to them would be boring. I already know how to do this. It's like, their project managers get more joy out of doing something new the first time. They love figuring out how to do something, researching and evaluating options, and setting up, making something real, But then they would get bored very quickly if they're going to do it, that one thing, again and again and again, And then there are other people, process managers, who just tell me what to do. If you just tell me what to do, I'm more than happy to do it. And I want to do it exactly like you tell me to do it. I want to do a great job for you. And it is frustrating when they don't know what to do, and they don't either know what the next step is, or have I don't know whether it's self-confidence, or they don't have, their preference isn't to just come up with an idea. They're, people who are lower quick starts, that's not their thing. They're not trying to figure out how to do something, but they will come to you if they're fact finders. If they're high on fact finder, low on quick start, they'll come to you and say, what would you like me to do in this case, or with this situation, or how would you like this? You can get, you could do it like this or like this or like this. Which way would you like me to do it? Where you have to figure out what to do.
Right. And so, because that's a frustrating thing, is to be in a reverse delegation situation where you believe you're hiring somebody to help you with work, and all they're doing is bringing more work to you. And
that's exactly what happens. Is you're absolutely right. Is now they are coming to you and dropping at and they come to a standstill.
Right, and then you're left figuring it out, and then you get frustrated because you're paying to have someone help you, but what you've just paid for is to add more work to your life in the process of trying to get work done, or take certain work off your back so you can do other work. And it's really a setup. I mean, you can have the very best of intentions with setting up something, but if you can rewire your entire house, but if you have the wires in the wrong place, it's still not going to, things aren't going to turn on, or you might want to go flip a light switch, but a blender turns on, So, I mean, it's the same way in your business. So, Dean, for time purposes, and this I thought was a really good, insightful way to think about, getting things done. And certainly, I mean, I've learned some stuff just from talking about it. When I say I've learned, one of the ways I learn, I don't need to learn something new. I love the line, you never step in the same river twice. I mean,
twice, right?
Every time I hear something, or if I read a book that I've read before, or I attend an event that I've attended before, or I listen to something that I've listened to before, I never am the same person when I listen to it or hear it. And I think all of these discussions about, the self-milking cow and project management and process management and make it up and make it real, and the analogies and stuff just give me a whole nother perspective and approach on how I can, take things on in a more capable and more confident state. So for people listening here, how would you take them out? I mean, how would you?
I think
summarize what we said.
I think that as a cow, as an idea person, the output of an idea, the output is, what do I want? What does it look like? What am I trying to accomplish? Like, you can describe what it is. And, the very best tool for describing something like that I've really started embracing the impact filter that Dan Sullivan talks about in Strategic Coach. It's one of the tools, one of the primary tools of Strategic Coach. And that's why, when you talk about how you and I, that's where we invest time and money, is in thinking about our thinking. And the impact filter is a tool that helps you think about your thinking in a way that translates it into what the finished product looks like, so that you can then pass that on to a project manager who can look at that impact filter as their input, and their output would be a process or a plan to get that out into reality, and only come to you for the things that truly only can be done by you, and to be able to handle all the other things. So I think immediately, Joe, that's kind of that would be a multiplier for you, is if you can find somebody like that. That if you can, I just feel like I'm so happy that if I can get to a point where I've got a place to capture all of the ideas that I have. That's my playground, and I can roam the pastures and add to all of these ideas, or think about, or get clear on what I want, and evaluate which ones I think are the ones that I really want to take to the milking shed now and start the process of getting them out into the real world. And having somebody there in the milking shed to, help you get that out into a form that he can translate it for the processing plant, that what's actually going to need to be processed here, right? Once you get those whole things. So that the whole 90-minute book process was an experiment in creating, it's kind of like creating a farm for entrepreneurs to get intellectual property out there, myself first. Right. That's how I set it up, so that I can, in 90 minutes, create a book.
Yep. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
No, very good. Very good. Well, here's what I would suggest. I'd love to have you do if you think it's a good idea, one of those episodes with Dan. And if not, people can hear like the 80% approach and hear more about impact filters and making it up and making it real, and process manager versus project manager, the number 10xtalk.com. Mm-hmm. Or you can hear a version if Dean decides to, do one and put it up. We're also going to have some cool bonus episodes that are going to come up in the next few weeks. I did an interview with the voice of Siri,
nice.
The Australian voice of Siri, which is really cool. How she uses even the whole system of a GPS and a navigation system to come up with your goals. So that was a short video interview that I did off the cuff when she happened to be in town. And then, the Gary Vaynerchuk video, which I'll be doing here shortly this week. And then we'll put that up soon. And anything else. So any final last words before we wrap up this fabulous episode, Dean?
Awesome. This has been great. I love it. I'm so happy to see how it all keeps evolving. So it's great to have the...
I guess everyone could go to 24 hours of deanjackson.com or something like that. They can get happy. Could you imagine? That would be painful. Like if you wanted to be depressed, you could go to 24 hours of I'm kidding.
You know what? They could go to 136 hours of Dean and Joe right now at ilovemarketing.com. We should set that up.
And they could play that in the background subtly for their children, even from the moment they're born.
I love it.
So that they can instill this marketing sort of knowledge into because anyone that grows up not loving marketing truly is at such a disadvantage. And so if they're already in that disadvantaged state, that they have been trained that marketing is somehow this bad, evil thing, because some marketers are bad and evil. If they believe that the actual thing of it is, then of course we're here to save the day by providing ilovemarketing.com. So I'm so glad we're able to provide this public service to humanity and just, make everyone happy.
There we go.
So that's it. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you on the next episode.
Okay. Bye. And there we have it. Another great episode. Thanks for listening in. If you want to continue the conversation, we'll go deeper in how the 8 profit activators can apply to your business. 2 things you can do. Right now, you can go to morecheeselesswhiskers.com and you can download a copy of the More Cheese Less Whiskers book. And you can listen to the back episodes, of course, if you're just listening here on iTunes. Secondly, the thing that we talk about in applying all of the 8 profit activators are part of the breakthrough DNA process. And you can download a book and a scorecard and watch a video all about the 8 profit activators at breakthroughdna.com. And that's a great place to start the journey in applying this scientific approach to growing your business. That's really the way we think about Breakthrough DNA as an operating system that you can overlay on your existing business and immediately look for insights there. So that's it for this week. Have a great week, and we will be back next time with another episode of More Cheese, Less Whiskers.